Okay, great. So for the sake of folks listening to the recording, today is April 15th, tax day. I just did mine over the weekend. I'm one of those laggards. Usually I ask for an extension. Um, and this is our Bishop of Springs Historical Society board meeting. Thank you all for working out the ability to do something close to our other time so we can get continuation of these topics and close some things up. Hopefully, it's harder when we have to come back to them after weeks and weeks. So I promise I won't ask you for another one in a week or something. So what, yes, I thought I heard a voice. Okay. So I sent you the deck that you could look at and think a little bit. There's some clarifications I need to make. I talked to Larry earlier and he said, oh, this sounds like you mean this rather than that. So I'll try to clarify as we go through because I may not have expressed things in the notes or in my slides as well as I should have. So I'm going to share my screen so we can have that to view together. Let me pull this up. Here we go. So I'll ask somebody just to let me know if you can see that.
Can see it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great.
No, we don't.
You don't, Gene? Let's
Gene,
see.
do you have your video on?
Where? Tell me where to find it.
It should be in most
Start
of them. They're in
video.
the left. If you kind of scroll and get the computer to respond,
Okay, it says start
you can
video.
see start
There
video.
you
That's
are.
it.
Hello.
You got it.
Well, I'm not seeing his chart though, but
Yeah, that's probably her own video versus what I'm sharing.
yeah,
Let me see.
I somewhat remember it from reviewing it.
Okay,
I
what
don't
are
know
you
about
seeing on the
Sharon's.
screen? What are you seeing on the screen right now, Gene?
If I go to move my mouse up to where it's mute and the apps and so forth, participants, chat, share screen.
Yep. Okay, so you've got the bar there, the control bar for Zoom. So what maybe we need to figure out why you're not seeing the other. Do you have other windows open, like an email account or something like that? It might be hidden.
But it's in behind everything.
It could be.
Yeah,
So
it is.
okay, well, if you want to refer to what I sent, that'll be very close. I did some corrections on the one I'm sharing right now, and I'll send that out after as well, just in case. So we'll start with this and see what else we can clarify. So the first item I had here, we had talked last week about this idea of two types, and I realized that saying call for a vote might have been confusing. Larry said it sounded like I was calling to vote to say, let's create those, or let's make that part of the bylaws. It already is. So my point is to ask for us to go ahead and utilize the idea of the two voting or the two director types. And we talked a little bit about this last week, what might be advantages to that and differences. So what I wanted to start with was first, can we get on board as a group with that idea? And if so, we can go into some things I've got on another screen about that. But if not, I proposed some other thinking at the bottom of that slide I sent, and those of you looking at the ones I'm sharing now can see that as well. So let's just start with this idea. Does anyone have questions or want to advocate one way or another about the idea of having both voting and honorary directors as part?
I have a basic question. The document you sent to us where you had highlighted, in other words, were there no changes made? Did you make changes?
Not in the one I sent you all. I have since.
You just highlighted?
Yeah, I believe so. I put in the notes of each slide these things. So it says down there what you're seeing right on the screen as well. Call for a vote.
No, I'm talking about the original document, the bylaws that you sent us.
Oh, no.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Yeah, the bylaws, all I did was highlight things. Of course, I'm not changing anything on the bylaws. I'm not looking to do that at all. I just was trying to highlight some of the things that were relevant to what I was going to ask us to discuss. Does that help, Susan?
Yeah, that helps.
Okay, great. No, I am not here to get into that with us unless someone brings up a reason we need to look at changing those, we can certainly have that conversation. I know that would require amendments or other things that are more official than going this route of just trying to see how we can align with some of those for the benefit of the society. Thank you for that clarification.
One of my concerns about the honorary members is I think what I'm hearing, and particularly in our phone call on the 6th of this month, is that we need more working members. So that the burden on you last summer, I think you were sharing, was pretty heavy because you're doing a whole lot of block and tackle. And if that's the case, I think I may lean against, reviving this concept of honorary, because it doesn't sound like a working board member.
Yeah. So let me share. That's a good question. And I create a slide here that I'm sharing. I know Jean and Sharon, you can't see this, but I'll try to speak through it. What I tried to visualize is the idea and how it could play out. So what I'm showing here is on the left-hand side, if voting directors, obviously officers are automatically voting directors. So we know that. And then what might some of us start to do is some other things where we align, and that's not totally necessary. It's an idea. But let's look at the honorary side. And my suggestion was if we had some honorary folks, that they might be able to help us in terms of not necessarily being the working member, but to focus specifically on some things that I know not everybody on this group has wanted to say, oh, I'm the museum person, I'm the scholarship person, or I'm the programs person. But we have some folks that are willing to take some leadership or at least administration of some of those areas. So for instance, if we say, yeah, we're going to have 2 barn dances, that somebody is guiding and overseeing that things happen, basically. And so in a way they become the leader in a role that is not necessarily already designated on the board itself. And I gave the example last week. I had talked to Will about this, and he was happy to move into an honorary position, partially because of his availability to be a voting director, but also he has an investment in wanting to see some things happen with that. And I know we've got other questions about the scholarship right now, but that's just an example of somebody who had a passion for something. Does that help a little bit, Elizabeth, with the idea?
Well, it does. It's interesting the way you divided it up, but now I'm having another fear. Tell me if this is realistic.
Okay.
Do we have enough people to do all this who actually want to be involved? Because we have a fairly small board right
Get your
now.
head over here too.
Exactly. So on that side, the
Oh.
right-hand side where I mentioned all these things, we do these now, right? We have programs, we have social events, we have the museum, we have a scholarship, we have publications that are there. What's happening right now is it's a little bit ad hoc as to how they get done. Now, granted, Sharon works in the museum and oversees what's happening there at the moment. But the other things don't really have a single owner. And so, I've been happy to go find whoever I need to find and recruit who I need to recruit. But again, it's not really, should be more of a shared kind of thing. Now, if we wanted to take those things on as different directors of the board, that could work too. And that's what I hadn't heard like a passion for, but we could go that route either way. My hope is that we do find some folks who have passion for some of these things. And I know a couple of folks that I think would dive into a few of these. But that's why I'm looking at it this way. Yeah, John?
Yeah. This may just be a semantic thing, but if people are actively running with some of the functions of the society, for instance, organizing speakers for the programs, or organizing a barn dance, or running with deciding who should get the scholarship or the prize, or working on the museum, or it seems to me those people are kind of actively doing stuff, and therefore they should be probably active voting board members. To me, the word honorary makes it sound like you're taking a back seat, maybe temporarily, and you're just kind of observing and maybe offering useful comments and advice and whatnot. But it seems if you're actually kind of running events, then you should be a current
Be an
voting
active-
board member, but maybe
Okay.
not. It's somewhat of a terminology thing. So I'm not trying to push anything. I'm just pointing that out.
Yeah. Well, and again, and I have to agree with you, John. That's the way I wanted to see it. I just didn't get the sense that the current membership of the board was interested in holding an area and owning it. And so I thought, well, maybe if we have touch point people who have a passion for it, they don't necessarily need to have the liberty to make all the decisions. For instance, the programs we might set, what do we want those to be? And then they help with the logistical, the administrative aspect, making flyers, contacting the location to make sure things are ready to go, setting up for receptions, all that kind of, it's the stuff, it's the doing that I had in mind. Now, as an advisor, and that is more what I talked to Will about in terms of scholarship going forward, if we do it, that's a whole different thing as well. Alternatively, we could put this list of things, activities under the voting side of the house here. And we say, well, who's going to be the touch point for programs? Who's going to be the touch point for social events, etc. I have no problem with that whatsoever. If we can achieve that, that would be perfect.
Yeah, what kind of strikes me is, you'd almost imagine VP programs, VP social, and that's an actual role. It's very clear who has it, and it's not sort of an honorary thing where you're just kind of floating around. You might get help from people, but you're the one who's responsible for that particular area of activity.
Okay.
And
I would agree, and that's the way I see it. And most of the committees I serve on, we each have our own defined roles in terms of what the activities of the organization are. So that is ideal for me. I'm sorry, Jean, you were saying?
Yes. The people who attend our meetings, I think they don't always know which weeks they're going to be here. And they come and they go. If they're here, they attend the meetings. If they're here and are asked to help, they usually help with what they are, but they don't have a set schedule. You're looking at the ones that come here the most right now on the screen, other than Larry and Will. These are the folks that are here on a more regular basis. The others, you may see them at one meeting, you may see them at several, but the people, they're here for the retreat, so to speak, and to be with their family and to see each other. And they help when they're here, but they don't have a schedule of when they will be here normally.
Well, that schedule also changes.
Yes.
It can change at the last minute.
Yes, exactly.
Well, let me ask Jean, are you assuming all these things require somebody being present in person? Because that's not what I'm thinking at all. None of you all are here 100% of the time. Jean, you're probably maybe the exception than anybody, and Sharon, for sure. But Harrison's not here half of the year. John, his schedule is very in and out, I know, but he's here a fair amount. But I don't necessarily agree that this is the group that's here all the time. I'll be honest with you.
Well, no, just like Harrison's in and out more than a lot of people, a lot of the summer people.
So, well, let me ask you then, Jean, in that case, are you advocating for this idea of what Elizabeth's saying, was that each of you all would take one of these areas and own it?
What did he say? He said that each one take an area and own it.
I think programs is an area that somebody can't take and own, because you might be here, I might miss one time. Usually what we've done is we found out if we weren't going to be here, if we were president and we weren't going to be here, then we would find somebody else that was going to be there and they would take over. We would call around and email around and get someone else to take that responsibility.
So you're talking about the day of the program is what you're talking about.
Program. I think social
no,
events,
I'm talking about the work.
You can't.
The day of the program is, to me, no work. It's all ready to go. I'm talking about, who is speaking, what are the coordination to speak, to get with them, do the publicity, arrange for the location to be open. There's so much that has 2% happens the day of. And I can tell you this because I did it all last summer. What takes time is all the other logistical work, and that is not an in-person job. Can be done remotely, because I mean that's what I did most of it, even though I was local.
Yeah,
So
look,
I'm just having a problem with this understanding of that these are not things I'm talking about that you have to be here.
yeah, let me clarify where
okay.
I was a little bit. I actually am not really for one person taking ownership of each of these things. I think I'll tell you honestly where I think we ought to go. I think we need to expand the size of the board, which was in your notes earlier, that to the slides. I know, Andrew, I can't see them now, but I saw them earlier.
Yeah, let me go back to that one.
I would get closer to 15 people, and then I would share responsibility. So there might be 3 of us that work on programs for summer of 2024, and then that rotates out, and 3 people that work on the barn dances. And then honestly, my second point would be that we might take this list of things we're trying to do and cut it in half. And we can talk about that, but that's a lot that I saw on the screen earlier about what we want to accomplish. And I would say we cut it in half, keep it simple, enlarge the board, and put us in teams of like 3 to get things done. It's more fun that way. It's a little less scary. It doesn't feel like you've got a huge responsibility, for our little vacation home kind of town, which is sort of the vibe.
Yeah,
that's more where I am, honestly.
So the kind of a committee approach then.
Yeah, but they're all voting board members. I don't think we need honoraries. I think you're telling us loud and clear we need working board members. I don't think we can get all this done, but we can get a lot of it done. And I think we should go to 15, which I think is our max from the bylaws, and put us in little teams, and it'll be more fun.
Yeah, and part of what, and I know this isn't all lined out here, and I probably need to verbalize it more, but part of what I was envisioning, and I've always experienced on other boards, is we have committees, standing committees, and the standing committees include a board member and then other people in the membership. So in other words,
I don't think it's going to work. I don't think it's going to work here. I'm just being very pragmatic right now. I think we have some of us, and you're looking at them, and if we can get our board to 15, we'll be lucky. Most people are up here to kind of relax and socialize and enjoy what we throw out there for them.
So you don't think somebody would be willing to walk to the post office or drive to the post office and the community center and put up a flyer?
Well, that's a pretty.
You don't need a committee for that.
No, you don't, but we need help. Is my point. And I'm trying to figure out a way, how do we do that without overtaxing you all and anybody else?
I think let's grow to 15. Let's try and see if we can find 15 people to sit on this, and then decide what we're going to get done. It's probably a fraction of all that stuff.
So we won't do what we've been doing, is what you're saying. We back off of that.
No, I just saw some extra things like I'm interested in the Grundy County Historical Society and what the Beersheba room. I think that's cool, but we may not.
I listed, let me just clarify. I listed all these liaison ideas. It's just it could be. I'm already talking to Lynn Richardson on a regular basis. I go to the town council meetings. I deal with Audra Miller at the market. I went to Grundy County Historical Society recently, had a long chat with some folks over there. It's about having a connection. And if we don't want to say one person or another does it, that's fine. So ignore that list, if you will. I guess I confused the idea of collaboration with the locality.
I got you. Okay, well, that's helpful.
Sorry for that confusion, if that's what I did.
Okay.
So listening to all this, I think it ties to so Andrew, I just want to welcome you pushing us. So let me just appreciate that. But to go to another level has always been difficult with this community. And historically, it seems like the passion of the current board members and the current president seem to kind of move things forward. I think of Susan and Joan. They just 2 peas in a pod, and they just took the museum to a whole nother level, and arts camp and all kinds of things. But I'm just concerned that how do we get over the hump of cultivating, more passion for this kind of thing when most people do want to come up? That, it's great to get them out for a talk and some socialization, but we've had a damn time growing the board. And I'm not saying it's not possible. Maybe this is a new era. And I think what Gene was trying to say is not so much that we're there in person, but we are there consistently in different ways of being embedded in the community, in our relationships.
Okay.
So the human power and capital of that is what you see of us regulars in different capacities. So that's going to segue, I don't want to open a can of worms yet, but it's going to segue into some concern I have about if we have strict 3 on, 3 off, are we going to shoot ourselves in the foot eventually? I mean, pretty soon. So I think it's tied to Elizabeth kind of getting into the, where are the people, where are the bodies, and if we can grow it and get people, fired up, then it's less burden on the president and even us. So anyway, I just feel like my systemic brain sees all this kind of interrelated and tied together.
I just counted, I think we're at 10 board members right now, and we had
9.
Okay. Is Sam Baggett a board member?
He is at the moment.
I think it might be 10. So we'd add Stephanie Oakley and Peg Williams, and we'd be at 12, right? And then
Well, I don't know what you're saying about that. I've contacted them about their willingness to volunteer, not to be on a board. But if they, express some interest in that, we can talk about that. But right now,
I think
just
those are one and the same to me right now. It's like the volunteering is happening by getting on the board mostly. So we bring them on.
Well, what about the volunteers that did the barn dances last year?
Well, there
What
was
about the
one
volunteers who gave
non-board,
receptions last year?
and the rest of us were board members.
I'm sorry?
There was one key non-board, and then the rest of us were board members.
Well, Elizabeth Papel, David Lipsy, and there are a couple other people helping with decorations for the first one, I know. And so I'm going uphill here, so I will stop.
Yeah.
So I hear that we have a no vote with regards to voting an honorary, and what I'm hearing, I would like to take a vote because I want a decision tonight on this. So how many are willing, is there anyone against, let me put it this way, expanding the number of the board members?
Did you just take a vote? Did you just announce there was a vote on the
I am
honorary?
asking is anyone
bypassing it?
against, excuse me, is
Wait,
anyone
what about the
against?
honorary? Did you just say that you hear that there's a no vote on the honorary?
I did, yes.
Did you call for a vote?
Well, okay, let me hear.
I
Is there
mean-
anyone who wants to have honorary directors other than me?
What we voting on?
Okay, I hear no voices. Okay. On the second part, since we've said no to that, is there anyone against enlarging the number of board members to accomplish spreading the work?
That's a yes, which is already in the bylaws, right? That we already have 15 as the target number.
15 is the max we can have. There's no
Max.
the minimum we can have is 5. So we do not have a requirement to add or delete. It's a matter of how many do we want to satisfy what we want to do. And Elizabeth has raised the question of why don't we add? And so I'm asking, is there anyone who would not be in favor of adding board members?
No.
Does anyone have any questions to raise about that? Do we all understand what we're talking about doing? Okay, done. Let's go on to the next thing, which Harrison, I've heard you already make one comment. I'm going to ask first. I changed the language down here. I'd said term limits, and that's incorrect. It's not about term limits. That we talk about that with, mayors and things. They can't have, serve so many terms. It's about having terms, period. And I expressed to you last week, or a week ago, or whenever we met, my interest in this to enable us to be a more diverse and inclusive board over time. I have heard what each of you have said of difficulty. I would like us to be a little more forward thinking. But just to clarify what I mean by this is in most organizations, you have what are called classes, and there are people in each class that would then rotate off on their third year. And so I've got a visual here on the screen that just represents that very simply. And maybe there's 3 people, if there's 20 people on, or excuse me, 15 people on the board, or maybe 5 people. But the idea is that we not only don't kill one of you all, I would much rather you rotate off than you just get sick of it and quit. And
Okay.
so, and 2 of you have already expressed that to me. So I really don't want to see that. I'd rather that it just be a natural progression, but then also that we give the opportunity for others to be considered without going to 15 members on a board. I personally think it's way too many for this group. I like the number we have now, but I hear there's a need by your vote to do differently. So I am asking the question, who would be against going to the terms as dictated by our bylaws? Or if there's questions about how that works, you can bring those up now too.
I have a question.
Okay.
Susan, do you want to go? I have a question.
Well, when he says the terms as dictated by the bylaws, our bylaws don't say we have 3-year terms.
Yes, they do. I went over this with Larry today. Trust me, it's in there. I can give you the location if you would like.
And Susan, I do recall that we used to do that way back, where we would know that there was a class. We had this model, Andrew, where there was this class, the next class, and we did a pretty good job for a while. But then we hit a snag where there wasn't enough people to load the pipeline, and so some of us kept renewing.
They get my bylaws.
Okay.
I have the bylaws on the screen right now. If you look at this, 4.2 notes that there should be no fewer than 5, no more than 15, and each voting director shall serve for a term of 3 years.
So I'd like to pose my question.
Go ahead, Harrison, I'm sorry.
So let's say there's a year that we only have 1 or 2 coming on, but that third one is not there. Is there provision if somebody wanted to stay on for 3 more years, or that's a hard line no?
There's nothing in the bylaws that says you can't re-up for another term. So some organizations, some organizations do that, where they say you've got to lay out for a year before you can do another term. Ours do not. Our bylaws do not say that. So it is not prohibitive of someone continuing on another term after their 3 years.
I think that if I'm recalling, I think that like when Joan was president and then Susan and the board would meet, they'd say, are you still willing to serve? And that's sort of how it was done, even though I think they would always try to bring someone new on as well. But that did not always work out.
Sure. Yeah.
And so really it was almost on an annual basis. Are you willing to continue? Susan, am I correct on that now that you're back?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I've been
bring up a good point.
And I can't.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I can't find my notebook.
Well, Susan, are you looking for the bylaws?
Yes, I have a notebook with all that in it.
Okay, they're on the screen right now. That's what I'm sharing.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We can't see it. Have no idea.
Okay.
Yeah, I read the provision, but I'm happy to read it again if that helps you all, Jean and Sharon. Basically says there should be no fewer than 5, no more than 15 voting directors, the exact number to be determined from time to time by the board. Unless they're otherwise agreed by a majority vote of the board, each voting director shall serve for a term of 3 years.
which I think allows people to stay on if, as Gene says, they're, willing to continue serving. But it does provide a natural way for people to kind of roll off.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
without having to go through the idea of voting somebody off the board or whatnot.
Exactly.
You just let them, if they've naturally just kind of faded, they aren't there to be re-elected after their 3-year term is up. So I think it's fine as is.
Mhm. Yeah, we just had to do a better job of implementing, because when I was president, we did go through a list of who was in which class. Back when, but that's been ancient history since we've done that regularly.
The problem is the pandemic.
That
We
was
just
several.
got very casual during the pandemic. We weren't, everything changed.
Yeah.
The pandemic messed us up.
I would like to mention, if this is an appropriate time for it, I think that the fellowship in the people's homes afterwards has been nice, but it may be a burden on people as well, since we're mainly here to, the majority are here for rest and relaxation for a quick weekend and then leaving. And last year was the first time we've done that, Andrew, and I think it was a nice thing to do. But it really might be a hardship on people to try to do that on regular basis. We usually
yeah. The people that did that last year offered it. I didn't put out a request for anybody. They said, hey, we'd be happy to have people over after. And they did that on their own. So it was not a request.
okay.
Anybody. Yeah.
And
I've
that
had
has
others say they'd
happened
be
in
willing
the
to do it.
past. That has happened in the past, just not
Okay.
regularly.
Sure. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, we've had refreshments and people have hung around at the Grace Chapel some, or at the Papels at that meeting. People would hang around a little bit sometimes.
But it
Yeah.
would usually just be cookies and something to drink,
Exactly.
and
Something
not a
light.
big spread.
No.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The
Something
folks that
very
did that
simple.
last year took it upon themselves to do however much they did.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a lot. Now I did the first one, but should that do?
We noticed, and it was nice.
And so specifically, if we get back to the class system for the various reasons, and hopefully generate more people to come in, and vice versa. I think Larry and I are probably in the same class, so you'll have to let us know if we're due to who's rotating off as we implement this next year.
Well, I have no way of knowing who came on when. Now, if we've got a record of that somewhere, that would help us start up. I was just going to other.
I've got
Sorry?
some old stuff.
You do? Okay. Okay. That'd be helpful, Susan, because then that may be a more equitable way to say who starts off where, as opposed to us just saying, oh, let's put so-and-so there or there. So that'd be helpful if you could share whatever you've got.
And I don't know when it might be the time for it, but David has done such a nice job the last several barn dances that I would think it appropriate to ask him if he would like to serve on the board.
So bring that in as a board kind of oversight.
Well, not necessarily, but he is participating
Yeah.
and does live here.
Okay. Well, I have a
and
call.
I think I would, and I don't know, I know his wife does not get out simply
Yeah.
because of her allergies.
Exactly. Yeah.
And but if he's here all the time and would want to be on the board, I think that would be an appropriate one to add. And then a couple of the new people, but just to be on the board, but not in a it not be too hard on them, and then get a taste of what we do as they grow into another position on the board. Some that are moving here permanently now that have not been in the past.
Yeah. I've had 3 other than David, persons who are now full-time residents express an interest in getting involved. So, and I think they would bring some great experience and expertise and good perspective on things as well. David and I are having a chat tomorrow. He's local, so I'll see him then, specifically to talk about what involvement he wants with barn dances this coming year, and as we get going on that. So,
and he probably needs to know who has helped in the past on these barn dances so that he can recruit them to help him.
yeah.
But I don't have those list of people.
Yeah, I think he's gotten some of that because of his involvement last year. Elizabeth Papel helped identify a number of folks, and then he and I actively were involved in setting up the musicians, which some thoughts on that coming as well.
Is it appropriate for us to, as a board, vote on whether or not we want to ask David or whomever we ask, or we just ask and
if I may, what I would recommend we do is let's continue identifying some potential folks, and let's have a chat maybe over the next month about, what invitations and to what degree we want to expand. We've said we want to add, but we didn't really talk about how much and for what purposes. And I think if we get a sense of, we'd love to have somebody that has this expertise or that kind of interest or whatever, it might help us with that versus let's just go out and recruit board members for the sake of it. Does that make sense, James? Okay. Is it John?
This Harrison. That's what we've done in the past, to put some feelers out and then discuss it, because there have been times we did that and we still had a dud where somebody was on the board and they did not show up to any meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So,
right.
I think the bylaws say that we actually do our new board member nominations at our August board annual meeting.
Yes.
That's right.
I pinned them to get ready for this meeting, and I think that's what we'll
that's
do.
right. That's right.
So let's come back to that. We talk about the annual meeting because that's further down. Sorry, who was that?
Okay.
Yeah, and we vote them in. The board votes them in.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
The new people. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
we've added members in the past. We've added members when something was appropriate. I do believe we have.
Okay. Cool. All righty. The third thing, and I think we basically all agreed, we've been talking about it already, is let's have an annual meeting. I propose doing it in August, which I think has been the history as well. At our meeting then, I think what we were trying to clarify is that there wouldn't be voting among the membership, but perhaps we have voting around that time, or to announce or to present as part of that to them that the board has done. I think it would be a great opportunity for us to, really say, hey, here's some things going on, update them on any projects or new history kind of related activities going on. John and I and Susan, you were copied on that too, got this note from Terry Martin about discovering a new photo of Miss Armfield. So things like that pop up may be of interest to our members, and the annual meeting may be an opportunity, maybe not for that specifically, but just to talk about new discoveries, new learnings, if they're not done in the course of our programs and communications. So we can talk about what you all feel you want to make sure is part of that annual meeting. I'm up for whatever. So
if our annual meeting is going to be Crafts Fair weekend, I don't think people's mentality is that they want to sit and listen to business. They would rather be informed about some stuff, but they don't want to sit and work through business. I think we do need to have a separate meeting, whether we have it. Now that we can Zoom, the pandemic has brought that to us. So we don't have to gather in one place.
Are you referring the board meeting versus the larger meeting?
The membership meeting. I don't think it works to have them at the same, or would work to have them at the same time necessarily. I don't think the membership on Crafts Fair weekend is going to want to sit there and listen to people being voted in. Do you all?
We've always done that separately.
And yeah,
Exactly.
the
I was gonna say,
members don't vote. The
they
only
don't
people
vote,
who
yeah.
vote
I
are
know.
us, just
I
the board
know.
of directors. So and we can do that at a separate meeting.
In a separate meeting. That's what I was trying to say. I
Got
don't.
Oh, yeah,
Usually,
yeah.
we
Immediately
usually
after.
just took about 5 minutes
So-
to do that
Yes.
before the
Yeah,
meeting
it's
or
just-
after the
Or
meeting.
after.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just a point of clarification. That's good.
Okay, all right. Okay, let's move on. I won't walk through all this right now, but I put on a slide here the things that stood out to me that were highlights we discussed from the survey. And so I'm just going to say for tonight, if you would take your own glance through and see if there's anything else you think that should have been included here on our considerations list, and which things you think we ought to prioritize in terms of moving forward. We are, of course, needing to be in the process of getting programs settled and discerned. We may not be able to attend to every request, of course, but are there things we need to do differently? I think there's been more call to say, let's get into the local history a bit more. And it may be that we just need to bring some things forward that may be in the books, etc., but we just haven't been talked about in those gatherings. But we could see what you all think. But I just tried to put a starter list here to say, let's look at these kinds of things. We know for like the barn dances, we need to broaden support. If we can do more publicity, great. If not, that's fine. But anyway, we can get others involved in helping out and see ways that the local folks might get an interest at some point. I think the other things we talked about are easy to attack. On that last bullet I've got there about volunteers, I reached out by email to Stephanie and Peg today and said, hey, you expressed an interest. Let's have a chat about what your interest is. And per the discussion we had, more recently, if they said, hell, I'd be willing to dive in with both feet, maybe a board position would be good. I don't know how much their interest might be. Some of you may not even know Stephanie. She and her husband, Chris, purchased a home here a little over a year ago. Chris goes back and forth
Maxine's house,
between
you
Nashville.
all.
Yeah.
Maxine's
Oh, yes.
place.
Okay.
Next to the
Yeah.
Buntons. Yeah.
Mhm.
They're a
I've met her.
lovely couple. She is a lighting designer, architect, and a commercial lighting designer, and just a lovely person. She does. She's a licensed massage therapist as well.
Oh,
And then
really?
Peg, I'm sure Peg, most of you all are very familiar with, and she's lovely as well, and she's got energy to burn. I've found so. We'll see once they respond what their level of interest is. On the other thing that came up from a volunteer standpoint that Bill Howell mentioned, I've had an email with Bill. Sam is reaching out to him to talk about his interest in the topic that he mentioned. And so we'll hear what we hear back from Sam on that. So any questions about this? I think for now it's about, what do we want to really focus on if there's anything at the moment? And if not, we hold this for recommendations in the future. Okay.
Susan, did you start to say something?
Oh.
Her light came on, that's why I thought so.
Oh,
I
is it
hesitated.
moving?
Andrew, something you may not know, but I think the rest of us do, that for years we've tried to get the community involved as well and try to make them feel welcome
Yep.
in our meetings and interest. And I am not an IT person, so I can't do something like that. But I think that if we could do something with our web page that is on Facebook in a way that people can like, join, etc., that perhaps we could create a little more interest there by, like you say, posting a little bit about the history of the area. Maybe even take a family, and I'm not meaning one of us that are known for families here, but like maybe take the Fultz family or the Smarts or the Savage family, some of those, and do a little historical thing on them. It might perk their interest up in hearing a little more of the programming and attending a little more of the barn dances and activities.
Yeah. Yeah, I try to reiterate some of our things on the Friends of Worship of Springs Facebook site because that seems to be the busiest one. Vicky Fincher has also put things on the community center site for us, but we could try to go into the business on our own, have our own Facebook page as well. I think it'd be great. We need somebody to do that and manage it is the key thing. But yeah, I get you. That's where a lot of the local folks look is Facebook.
They do.
Yeah, they do. So if anybody has a idea about that as themselves or anybody that might be willing to help us with that, we could certainly get into social media. We have not really done it. Yeah. So let's put that as an idea to take forward. Yeah, Gene. Okay, I'm going to jump over here. A couple things have developed since we were together last time. This May 25th date, I went to the town council meeting Tuesday and I handed them our tentative dates so they could consider them. And Jackie Eubanks handed me this flyer about a medical clinic fundraiser at the community center on May 25th. It's not a thoroughly official looking flyer is all I'll say. And I don't know if you all have heard about this, but Renee Hopp's name was on it. So I called Renee, I know her well. And she said, yeah, it's going to be this kind of thing where we have bingo. We've got local businesses have donated prizes for bingo. They're going to do a cakewalk, kind of old fashioned cakewalk thing. And they're starting at 5:30, but she says it'll really not get going till 6. So I wanted to make sure we didn't have a conflict of interest, so to speak, but it really doesn't conflict with our time. In fact, I think it might be nice if we say, hey, come to our meeting and then walk across the street to the community center and enjoy the event that night. So I just wanted you all to be aware of that timing. And does anybody have any feelings if that affects us in any way?
It's Memorial Day weekend. I like what you're saying. Come to the meeting of the Historical Society and then go across the street to the fundraiser for the clinic. I like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they can flow nicely.
And what you have described that Renee told you is what they have in a fundraiser frequently here. There's at least one a month in there. Sometimes it'll be for the rescue squad. Sometimes it might be for someone who has cancer.
Yeah.
But that's their agenda, and they serve a meal and bingo afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah, they are doing food as well. Yeah, I just the look of I've been familiar with some of those other events. I just when it comes to the clinic, I always think of the board of the clinic or somebody else doing something a little more official, I'll call it, but not that it isn't a good thing, but I just wanted to make sure we understood what it was. But I think you're right, Gene. It's along that same lines and could be a lot of fun. Speaking of the clinic,
They usually are.
Yeah, I did reach out to the clinic and they have said Door to the Dash will be on Saturday, July 7th. I don't know that impacts us in any way, but wait a minute, Saturday's not the 7th, is it?
Andrew, Saturday's July 6th.
Oh no, I'm sorry. It's on July 4th. I don't know why I put a 7 here. I'm sorry. Yeah, the morning of the 4th at 7 a.m. is when they're doing Dash to the Door.
They're not doing it Saturday morning?
No, let me pull the woman's
They
name
always
up
do it on the 4th, John.
Let's see.
The Dash to the Door?
This was Mandy Eller who responded to me.
Yeah, she's on the board there.
Yeah, she's the current executive director. So that's what she said on the 4th itself. They want to coordinate it with leading into fireworks and other things that day as a big day of celebration.
They do it early and then the parade and then the fireworks
that's what
that
it was.
night.
Thanks, Gene. Yeah, the parade is what I meant to say. Yeah.
Wow.
So again, I don't think that impacts our decision unless any of you think so. I just wanted to make sure we were aware of what things are happening around it. Barn dance, we had said 27th or 28th, and we were leaning on the 28th. Did anybody find anything, 21st or 28th is what I meant to say. Did anyone find anything happening that would preclude us going with one or the other of those dates? Okay. If not, we had leaned more to the 28th. So unless there's some other feeling, I advocate that we stick with that. Any questions on it? Okay, alrighty. So those are our dates. I wanted to check in with you on this. It's a lot of stuff, but I was thinking, what could we tell our membership right now? And so I've got this list of stuff that I've written up, but it may be too much. We'll see. I'll see what you think to put in one email. But here's what I was thinking. We would tell them about the new book rack in the market so they can get things even when the museum isn't open and purchase them there. Putting our summer dates as much as we feel comfortable publicizing right now so they can go ahead and get those on their calendars for the summer. The third thing, letting them know who the current board is, which I mentioned last time, and then any kind of invitation we want to do to say, if you have an interest in serving on the board, let us know. The same thing for any other kind of volunteers. Now, what I was hearing earlier is you all didn't, or there was a feeling that we really wouldn't have volunteers outside of the board. I would still like to ask who might be interested. So we can always know who those people we can short-term call on. Hey, here's one thing. Could you do this or that? Especially when we're not all here. The other thing I thought we'd mention is our change in membership model that we went through last fall, where we're not saying you have to pay $10 to join, but we're asking for a donation versus being a member. And we updated the member form accordingly that John has put on the website to represent that and to also encourage some life memberships. By the way, we had a new life member join recently that Sharon got to receive the form for Jed Thomas. And so we've added another life member there, which is great. And we had 2 other persons join in general over the last few months. I'm going to send you all that list as well as the whole list of membership, and I'll come back to that in a moment. I thought we'd say thanks to those who participated in the survey, thank them for the helpful feedback. And 2 things that I thought, one that maybe we might look at doing regularly. I've got this thing called a history moment. And I was thinking, what are those small bites of history interests that we might share when we go ahead and communicate out otherwise? And I pulled an excerpt from the first volume of the history books where it talks about when telephones came to the mountain. And if you've read that, it's kind of a comical thing about some people just didn't want them, so they would take the receiver off the hook and cover it with pillows or whatever, so they didn't have to hear the thing ring. But anyhow, it was just an idea of a way we could sneak a little history info in, whether it's in our current publications or not, just to help others get a taste of the history. The last thing, I don't know if you all get the things from the state, the messages from the state parks, but they're doing this Wildflowers bingo card game. And anybody can go to the website, get the Wildflower bingo game. And if you get bingo, you could turn it in for a discount on purchasing things from the state park store. So I thought it might be fun to share that if anybody wants to participate while we have our beautiful wildflowers around for a short period more. So let me first ask questions about any of those things or comments about any of those content areas and anything you think we should or shouldn't maybe do at the moment.
Andrew, you may not know, but the books have always been sold at the store and also at the hotel in the gift shop there.
Yes, I do know that. We have expanded what's available, and now it's actually on a rack rather than sitting on a random table now. So if you haven't seen it, do go to the store and see the rack. We've got note cards, the maps, the history walking maps, some of the other books that wouldn't have been at the store before other than the 3 volumes. So yeah, we've just expanded that idea. I haven't talked to the hotel yet. I want to make sure we see what they're doing and if they need something different from us. Yeah.
Andrew, I had a question about the membership change
Yep.
on the dues or the fundraising. So are you suggesting that we are not going to charge dues any longer?
Yeah, if you all recall, we went through lengthy discussions about changing that model last fall. If I need to, I'll resend the notes about that. But we decided not to say you have to join and annually re-up, which is what we had on the form before. Not people were not necessarily doing it, but we were saying you had to, be an annual payment. So if we need to revisit those notes to make sure there's not change of heart,
I'm
we
so
can do
sorry.
that.
I
But
don't mean to dredge up something if we've already decided it. I think I didn't have that firmly in my mind, but at
okay,
our last phone call, at the very end, I was sharing just my general thoughts that we may end up deciding that we need a more formalized process for raising some revenue.
yes,
Particularly if we run into overages on the renovation of the museum, and that continues to be on my mind.
Yep.
So I don't know how that meshes with what you're saying. It sounds like people are sort of spontaneously deciding to do life memberships. We're not really soliciting it, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, I think we should be soliciting, in my opinion, as well as any other kind of donations. And I, we were not following what we said before. We were not bugging people to say you need to, renew your membership. In fact, we were not really asking for membership dues. We just kept adding people to the distribution list. So we said, let's just go ahead and include everybody that wants to be notified about these things and receive the information and welcome them to the events we're doing. And let's ask in lieu of that to say, hey, we'd love to include you. Please make some kind of donation if you can, whatever amount you can do. And if you can become a life member, great, and go about it that way instead of, because we weren't doing it anyhow, instead of saying you need to pay a membership fee and then annually renew. So if we're not going to do it, why would we have that in what we were putting on the website?
Before COVID, we did at every meeting say, here's the membership form. If you've not filled one out, please do. Sort of in that respect. And we were doing that before COVID.
Yeah, and those of you who attended last summer know I did the same. We had the forms there. Now, keep in mind that the last form date was 2017, which was well before COVID. So I'm not convinced that that was happening as a regular practice. But I know I don't have any records showing, who renewed or didn't renew. We just have this list of people is all we have. So, if we want to go back and get into that business, then we need to have some
I'm
tracking
not
and
that.
some.
I have that on my computer. When I was president, we had a program that we were using and we kept up with it. So I've got all that still on my computer, but it's very old.
I suppose the other way to do it, I mean, if we did get into the renovation of the museum and we did need additional funds beyond what we currently have, we could do a solicitation specific to the museum. But I don't know. I think this is I think this might be a topic for greater discussion. We don't have to do it tonight, but I worry a little bit about our finances. Of course, we don't have Larry either. It'd be good to have Larry for that talk.
Yep.
Yeah. I want to just
sorry, let me just say real quick, John, real quick. Elizabeth, the museum topic is going to come in a totally separate way for us, and we're going to come back to that as a sole topic. So, but in general, from a finance standpoint, I think we ought to be more often always saying, hey, you can donate. In fact, some of you last week said, why don't we have a donate button on the website? Maybe we do something like that. We need to, if you have a mechanism for people to do it, I think they're more likely to do it when they can and if they can, as opposed to, oh, look, randomly somebody sent us some money. How nice,
Right.
So, but we just have to be intentional about it, not obnoxious, but intentional about asking and saying, your funds help us to do what we do, and we'd love to have you support. John, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to quickly say there are a couple of groups in Atlanta that I've been involved in on the board of, and the idea of the $10 a year, membership thing, it's a lot of work for not a lot of money, and it turns out, at least in the cases that I've seen, you actually end up doing better just asking people to be generous and to donate something, and because people might give a lot more than $10, and especially if they're getting something for it, like they're coming to meetings and they're accessing information, and there are lots of ways they can get value from it. But just to pay $10 and that covers everything is kind of
Not so.
not really harvesting the value, but also creating all the work and keeping track of the members and everything. It's just, yeah, I mean, it's too much trouble.
Yeah.
I'd say just let them pay whatever they're paying, like the $10, whatever it is, but you don't have to keep a list of who paid it and take them off the list if they don't pay it,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Right.
And I think that's where
Right.
we ended up before, Gene, to your point.
Yeah.
I think
We
that
never
agrees
took
with.
people.
No,
never
we
took
don't take
off the
people off
list.
the list.
No, never.
But on that note, I'm going to send you all the current list because after we've had some changes this year with some people passing away, et cetera, I want to see if you happen to see anybody there that may have died or otherwise that I don't know, that you may know. So we don't, keep people on the list to show a number that we're not really representing. So I'll send that to you all. And if you would take a few minutes just to glance through and see if there's anybody like that, or for some other reason, wouldn't be on the list. Because, people are not necessarily always going to tell us, take me off your list or take so-and-so off. And so I think it's good we can check our accuracy any way we can. So I'll share that with you after this. Yeah.
And back to the web page.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever accessed it but twice to look at it, and there really wasn't that much on it. And I'm wondering if any members really do.
Well, we've tried to put that access link in front of them more often. It's hard to know, Gene. That's a very good question. There are analytics that can be done on websites. I don't know that we're set up to do that kind of thing. But yeah,
Quickly,
Tom?
now, the MailChimp software tells you if they clicked on the link. It doesn't tell you how far they went into the site, but you can see that.
So if they clicked on the email to go to it?
Yeah, go
Okay.
ahead. Though. Sorry.
Okay, well, thank you. I need to learn where that is.
Me too.
Okay, great. Thank you, John. He's the guy behind our technical operations here. So okay. Any other questions or thoughts about this content? Do you think it's okay to go ahead and we talk about those things?
I think it looks good.
Okay, cool. So I'll get that out in the next few days. The last thing I had on here was to come back to the scholarship. Let's just talk about right now. I know we have questions about future, but we do need to play out the current process. Just today, I received from the counselor at Grundy County High School 5 applicants. So we had 5 applicants, which I think is great because I personally was concerned when we said you got to be a Birchville Springs resident that we might limit ourselves too much. But we did have 5 applicants. One actually says Altamont rather than Birchville Springs, but Gene, to your point, in the past, they may be within that parameter we would say is, Birchville Springs anyhow. So we have
I
those
think
in
we'd
hand.
need to look at the address. I think
Yeah,
we'd need to look at the actual address, because I do know the Birchville mail also delivers in Altamont, just like the Altamont mail delivers in Birchville. So I think we would need to look at the map on some of it.
Sure. Yeah. So we have those in hand. She also let me know that the award presentation ceremony this year will be May 13th at 5 o'clock, which is the typical time they do it. Last year, Will presented, and it can be whomever we decide in the long run. And then we also need to have some folks oversee how is the gift going to be, the award going to be distributed, and anything else that goes along with that from an administrative perspective. So I put in my notes that I feel like some of you who really expressed a lot of passion about it would be perhaps the best persons to go ahead and do the review and make a recommendation of who the recipient should be, is my thought. And then you all could also at the same time either decide or ask who might want to do the award presentation. Will has done it this past year, and I know some before as well. And then figure out, what do we want to do in terms of distribution? So let me just go ahead. I'm going to put you all on the spot. Sorry, but Jean and Susan, would you all be willing to work with Will and make some decisions around these things to help us out?
Sure.
Yeah. And sure, a phone call would work probably. And if you each, decide how you want to go about making the decision, I'm happy to do that. Last year, I just came up with a voting process, but I feel like it was a bit presumptive of me, but we were under the gun. Let me ask board members, are the rest of you, are you okay with going about it that way?
Are the other board members, don't the other board members want to look at them too? Do they want to have input?
Let me ask, how about you all? What do you think?
I
John,
could go either way.
Harrison?
Sometimes, yes, and I'm glad I did. And other times it's like, well, I really trust Susan and Jean and others to have a better sense of some of the students. So,
Well, it's nice to have everybody's, I think it's nice for anybody that wants to look at them,
Okay.
to have a say. I mean, I don't
Well, I'll
mind.
tell you
being
what,
around it.
I'll send them out to everybody, Susan, and then
Okay.
the three of you will have it as well. And if anybody else wants to take a look, they can.
it does
Yeah.
help us stay in touch. So
Yep.
I will say yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would take a look, and may also
Yeah.
mention, it might be good to do the voting, kind of do a ranking. So as I recall how we've done it in the past, so that you can take all the different rankings and figure out.
Okay. John, your audio is a little in and out. I don't know about anybody else, but I lost a little bit of your,
Mhm. Yes,
you there, John?
Yeah, can you hear me?
your screen's frozen too.
You might want to turn your video off, might help.
Yeah, okay. So
He changed clothes quickly.
I'll turn mine off too. It might help us all.
He was younger back then too.
So John, if you don't mind repeating, I'm not sure everybody caught what you were saying.
yeah. I'm hoping you can hear me now.
Yeah.
I would like to take a look at them and have a vote. And if I recall correctly, we've usually done kind of a ranked voting so that the person over all the votes can, we don't really have to have a runoff. You can just kind of look at all the ranking and figure out who the winner ought to be.
Okay. So is that something you're recommending more than the subcommittee does, or more of you get involved in the ranking aspect, or what do you see?
I think what I see is you send it out to everybody and members. I mean, the board members who see it and care to vote on it, they can at least rank who they think and turn that into the committee, and the committee can use that as a factor in their decision process.
Okay. So another point of consideration for them. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. All right. And then the other thing I put here is, I know we've had some question about how do we continue, or do we continue? A couple of y'all said we should just, stop the scholarship. John, I think you and some others said, what if we look at it in a different way? Which would be my thought. I hate to drop it completely, but what I recommend, let's get through making the selection for this season, and then we can come around to saying, how does it evolve in the future? And Jean, Susan, you and Will, if you're talking and that topic comes up and you guys get some recommendations, let's hear that too. But I think we need to figure out, how do we see this working in the future? Is it different? Do we reinvent the idea, or not do it at all, or whatever? Just so we get a sense of where we want to go with it in future. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's all I have for us tonight. Is there any other business anyone wants to raise up for this point in time?
You have ideas for the programs?
I shared a few things last time. I don't have it in this
This one?
slide deck. At least I don't think I do. Let me see. Did I take it out? Yeah, if you have the last one I sent on email, then it's in there. Just briefly, I can tell you some things that have come up. One is looking at Civil War history, impact on Grundy County as well as Beersheba. Elizabeth has one idea of a contact to help us in that way. I put down an idea that I expressed last time of, what if we were to celebrate our literary and visual artists of the past from Beersheba? That would be people like Leonard Tate, Monty Wanamaker, perhaps Phil Mayhew, etc., just as you know, way to celebrate the arts and what it's meant to Beersheba as past as well as current and future, because we've got amazing artists here now as well.
And include Charles Cagle in that.
Charles Cagle?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's an artist that showed in the New York museums. He retired to Vermont and was a friend of Robert Frost.
And
At
what
least I
about,
think it was, or was that Leonard? But anyway, yes, his art has shown many places, and he lived across the road here before.
Oh, excellent.
and
Excellent.
our historical marker that talks about Mary Noailles Murphy?
Yes,
perfect.
Mary knows.
Yeah.
I know nothing about her.
Yeah.
Zero.
She was from the Murphys of Murfreesboro and had the Lover's Leap at one time.
But
Yep.
her books, I mean, I know nothing about her really.
Yeah.
I've never read any of her books.
Cool. Well, it looks like we've got some things we could help enlighten or share that history with a lot of people, and see what we can come up with, you know, who all locally might want to talk about any of these folks versus, you know, us having a guest presenter kind of thing. I've been
Hey,
reading a
Laura,
lot of, sorry?
I was going to ask for some help because on that Grundy County Civil War thing, my idea was that there is a man named J. Roderick Heller. I don't know him, the third, and he apparently lives in Franklin, Tennessee, and he wrote a biography of Felix Grundy. And Greg and I have the book, and so I Googled him and I told Andrew about this, and it turns out he's a lawyer and a businessman. He's also written about the Civil War. His grandmother lived at Carton Plantation. He got very involved in a battlefield in Franklin. You know, he's a historian. But I have looked on Facebook. I have looked on Google. I have tried to find his business. Does anybody know him?
No, but Elizabeth, he sounds like somebody that would be a speaker of interest area wide that we could have a dinner at the hotel. He sounds,
Yeah.
in the past, we have had a couple of people who had written books, and our turnout has been so small. It's almost been embarrassing to have these wonderful speakers and us with such a small turnout. If we
I
have,
was worried about that too. And I told Andrew
No.
maybe we could partner with the Grundy County Historical Society since he
Yep.
wrote a biography of Felix Grundy. But I like where you're going with a hotel dinner. My problem is I cannot find a way to get to him. And I
Find him.
I can't find him. And I know
Elizabeth,
he exists, but there are
Elizabeth, send me the information you have on him,
okay.
and let me do some inquiries at TSLA, and also my daughter, who's the genealogist and archivist. She has contacts too of a lot of people like that, as well as one that's from Grundy County that worked at TSLA.
Okay,
was-
super. I'll do that. Thank
So
you so
send
much.
me the information and I'll see if I can find out.
I'll do it. Thanks for the help. I appreciate it.
Excellent.
hmm,
Two other topics that were mentioned. There's an interesting mural at the Historical Society in Grundy County, or the Grundy County Historical Society. Those of you that have been there, I'm sure have seen it. It's very near the front, that shows the geological layers under the Cumberland Plateau. And
Yes.
at what periods, you know, when these towns were developed, where part of the layer they may have been built on, etc. So I just put down the idea of possibly we have somebody talk about the geological makeup of the Cumberland Plateau at some point. It's not a big history topic for this specific area, but I'm just brainstorming.
Well, last year's Trails and Trillium, there was a professor that came out in Swanee and did his slideshow presentation. It was quite fascinating on that very topic.
Is that right? Oh, okay.
I have to
And
check
I
my
talked
notes.
with one of the state park rangers about it one time, and he was very knowledgeable.
Okay. Great.
And I'm
thank
going to
you all.
be, I'll be a sweeper for some volunteer hours for the Tennessee Naturals program that I'm in. I think Saturday, or Sunday maybe. I'm a sweeper for a geologist that's going to take the group down to Greeter Falls and talk about geology and all the layers.
Oh, cool.
Oh, that's interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah, if you all aren't participating and can in future, I highly recommend coming over to Trails and Trilliums. The workshops are fantastic. All of the leadership and the naturalist and folks, it's really, really engaging and just exciting stuff. So I'll be there for that, and then doing one of the history walks. So we're getting ready for the onslaught of people this weekend. It's going to be a lot of folks here. So to answer your question, Susan, those are the topics that have come up to me so far. So
Great.
as you all think through other things, please bring it up. The only thing that's confirmed, and I mentioned this last time, is Ned Murray, who is the executive director for the Friends of South Cumberland, has offered to come and talk about their work and how it impacts this whole area, Savage Gulf included. So that's not necessarily a history thing, but I think it does tie into our concern for the area environment and where we tie into that as well. So I'll talk to him more about his specific agenda. He would be in June or July. He cannot do May. So we do not have something ready yet for May. We'll see what we could find out about the Civil War idea. And in the meantime, if we get something else that looks like a good idea for that date, do bring it forward as soon as possible, and we'll see what we can get worked out.
Thank you.
You bet.
Great. Sounds great.
Good. Okay. Well, I'm going to let you all go. You get 10 minutes. How exciting, huh?
Yeah.
Thank you. I
Can you
know this isn't the most ideal time, but we have a hard time, when everybody can do things. So if you all have some thoughts on a better time for us to get together in the future, please bring it up, because I want to make it as easy as possible. Me being retired now, I'm more flexible than I used to be, but I know for some of you that are still in the working world or have many, many other commitments, it's tough to figure out when works. So let's see what we can do to help everybody be a part. Yeah.
I'd like to.
Well, congratulations on being retired, but I found I got busier than I did when I worked.
Well, yeah. This is one of 3 boards for me. Plus I play part-time and stuff. So
that's what he said.
Yeah, that's the way it works. My parents worked harder as retired people than they ever did in their work lives. And so I guess I'm carrying on the tradition for them.
Right.
All right. Anything else we want to bring up before we go?
Is everybody still there, or have everybody?
I think we are. Yeah.
Is everybody still there?
Susan.
I'm just having a thought about the board. The pandemic has been going on for over 3 years, and basically all of us, everyone on the board's term has expired. So I think we need to figure out how we're going to continue, have continuity, but yes, some of us drop off and some people continue. And because I think it's unrealistic for all of us to just drop out of sight next year.
Yeah.
So especially when right now we don't have other people to do the planning, and our paper trail is so poor. We have kept minutes in the past. We did have minutes of meetings, and then they just sort of quit getting done. So I think that we need to talk about that again as a group. As soon as we have some people that really do want to get involved, and I think the best way to do it is to involve them as volunteers over this summer and let them see what it requires. And it's really tough. Even those of us that are faithful volunteers have so many competing things when we're at Beersheba, whether it's grandchildren or activities or just going and cooling off in the valley instead of coming to the Historical Society meeting, which is what a lot of people want to do. They just want to do an activity instead. So the more interesting programs we have, the more people that will come to the meetings, and that's the way we're going to build ourselves back up.
Okay.
Now that the pandemic's really over and we can do more.
Yeah. I think in terms of minutes, Elizabeth's been doing those when she is is with us. Last time, because she was busy having to be partly on the call, she's got to pick up from the notes I did to create something. But Susan, if you need to see any of those that we distribute each time, we can get them to you. Now, what we may haven't done is had a central repository always up to date. And if you're talking about doing that kind of thing, we can look into that, but there have been minutes each time. So now we've not done it consistently for the programs because they're no longer considered meetings in the format that went on last summer. But if but even then, Elizabeth did some notes for us. So if we're missing something, let us know. Okay, cool. Well, thank you all. Have a wonderful rest of your evening, and I'll be sending some stuff to you.
Well, thanks, Andrew. We hit a new record in how much involvement we've had this early in the year. So you've got us together. We put in more hours than we've had in previous years. So thank you.
Okay.
Right,
Okay.
we're on a roll.
Hopefully it'll
We're
help
on
us
a
out.
roll.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Off to a good
Yeah,
start.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Good
Good night.
Good night.